If you're a Democratic mega donor, this is a very tough moment for you. Your candidate is going to lose. All the polls show that. Joe Biden will not be elected president if current trends continue. So you need to make a change. But there's a problem, and that problem is Joe Biden's running mate. She's half Jamaican. Therefore, she's holy. You can't criticize her, much less demote her. That's not allowed. You are stuck with Kamala Harris, and she is even more unpopular than Joe Biden. So what do? Well, if you're smart, maybe you subvert the other party. Maybe you back a Republican candidate who's actually a Democrat, whose priorities are identical to yours. And of course, they found one. Her name is Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley is a liberal. She is all in on the 4 tenets of neoliberalism, which are white guilt, a finance-based economy, mass immigration, and endless neocon wars. Strip away all the outward characteristics, and Nikki Haley is identical in her priorities to Joe Biden and the people who back Joe Biden. Watch this tape. This is from last month. Nikki Haley explaining with a straight face that actually Vladimir Putin was behind the October 7th attacks in Israel.
Remember when I told you Putin hit rock bottom? Hamas invaded Israel and did all that brutality on October 7th. October 7th is Putin's birthday. Who's the happiest person in the world right now? Putin. Why? Because the U.S. and the West took all their eyes off of Ukraine, and what did we do? Started looking at Israel. Did Putin call Netanyahu? Nope, not for 10 days. You know who he did call? Hamas. They came the next day and they held hands and said they were friends. We now know the Russian intelligence is what helped Hamas know how to get through that barrier. See the connection. If we supported Ukraine and supported Israel, that's only 5% of our defense budget.
See, Putin and Ukraine are actually integrally connected to Hamas and Israel, and we need to spend all of our attention and all of our money on those matters rather than on our own country, which is degrading faster than most people can even keep track of. Well, that's completely insane, of course, but it's also something that Joe Biden might say were he capable of speaking that lucidly, and it's certainly something that Joe Biden's biggest donors agree with, which is why many of them are now backing Nikki Haley. See how this works? Vivek Ramaswamy does. He's actually engaged in this. He's running for president, and he's figured out what's actually going on. He joins us now. Vivek, thanks so much for coming on. What have you noticed about the kind of subtext to this race? What's actually going on here, do you think?
Yeah, well, look, I've been convinced for a long time, Tucker, that this was not going to be a standard Trump versus Biden race. Right. There's just been enough staring you in the face that made that obvious, right? You start with the trials and the civil trials and the prosecutions, and then they go to the non-prosecution and illegal removals from a ballot without trial on the Trump side. The thing that fascinated me about the Biden side of this, though, is you also see some of the same dynamics. The documents case for Biden trotting itself out after years, long ago in the Senate. You see a lot of other things with Biden. Why is the Hunter stuff coming out now when this has been known for 7 years? And so where I thought this was going was Gavin Newsom or Michelle Obama or whichever other puppet they're trotting out to replace Biden. But one of the things that's become clear to me, so that's where I thought this was going. It was not what was meeting the eye, for sure. I think what's become clear to me now, I'm in the thick of this GOP primary, is that the real puppet they're trotting out isn't Gavin Newsom. It isn't Michelle Obama. I was wrong about that, actually. I think the true puppet masters, the thing about them is they're fundamentally nonpartisan in nature. There's a few things they care about. Keeping the foreign war machine humming is high on the list. Keeping the administrative state's control of the United States is also high on the list. They found a much more convenient puppet within the Republican Party itself. It's not Gavin, it's not Michelle, it's Nikki, actually. And I think that if you just follow exactly who are the very people who are paying to keep Donald Trump off the ballot, who are funding the lawsuits that keep Trump off the ballot, the Reid Hoffmans of the world funding lawsuits against Trump, the Larry Finks of the world, king of the woke industrial complex, CEO of BlackRock, it's just obvious and hiding in plain sight Who are these people propping up? It's not Biden, and it's not even Gavin Newsom. It's Nikki Haley within the Republican Party itself. And I think that makes for a very convenient frontman, because then they actually have absolved themselves from any allegations of partisanship or Democratic partisanship against Donald Trump. They can say, oh, no, we're not partisans. We're actually bipartisan. Actually, the deep state, and I would say the managerial class more broadly, is fundamentally nonpartisan. They have their core objectives, and Nikki makes for a far better Trojan horse to actually accomplish that objective than anybody else. And so when you look at the dynamics within the mega donor class or otherwise, it is now crystal clear to me, Tucker, that let's just get to exactly the plan that they have. I mean, I've been alluding to this for a long time. I wanted people in the campaign trail and others to be able to draw their own conclusions. I don't want to stuff my views down people's throats, but I think it's just become crystal clear that it's now staring everybody in the face equally obviously, that they want to narrow this down. By they, I mean the system, the bipartisan system, wants to narrow this down to be a two-horse race between Donald Trump and Nikki Haley. They want it one way or another, by hell or high water, take Donald Trump out, eliminate him from competition, one way or another, and prop Nikki Haley up to just waltz straight in to keep the war machine humming and to effectively keep the censorship industrial complex and the administrative state intact exactly where it was in the post-9/11 Bush-Cheney era. That's exactly what's going on, and it's hiding in plain sight.
You're clearly right, and it took me, like you, a little while to figure this out. I was convinced it was Gavin Newsom. It's obviously not. They can't remove Biden. They're not going to. But watching the media reaction to Nikki Haley is one of the things that alerted me that something's going on here. I mean, the Wall Street Journal, which of course is far more on Larry Fink's side than it is on the side of Republican primary voters, by far, of course, has sort of taken up her cause. The New York Post, the Daily Beast, CNN, every cable news channel is promoting Nikki Haley, and her poll numbers wouldn't seem to justify that level of enthusiasm. Republican voters don't love her that much, but the media, the whole media, love her. Have you noticed this?
I've been having to think of this, Tucker. I noticed this. And I will tell you, even the polling, and at this point you say things that sounds conspiratorial. I think even a lot of the polling is falsely actually propagating her actual fake rise, which I don't think is actually grounded in the truth at all. I mean, I'm here in Iowa. I haven't met very many Nikki Haley supporters. I've met supporters of each of the other candidates, not those of Nikki Haley. And even if you look at the games that a network like CNN plays, it's really interesting, actually. I mean, they're having this fake debate on January 10th or whatever, several days before the Iowa caucus. Yeah, they hosted this town hall with each of the candidates. They begrudgingly had to do it with me. They did it with Nikki, with Ron DeSantis, et cetera.